A forever investment, unprecedented stability, no relegations. On paper, it was a perfect system, a billion-dollar blueprint designed to transform the chaotic world of esports into a professional paradise. But the plan had one fatal flaw. It was built for a world that didn't exist. This wasn't just a failed experiment, it was a billion-dollar broken promise. And today, we've got the receipts to prove it. To understand why an investor would pay $20 million for a spot in a video game league, you first have to understand the chaos it was designed to replace. Before franchising, the esports ecosystem was a passionate but deeply unstable Wild West. Teams existed in a state of constant financial insecurity, their survival tied to inconsistent prize money from a fragmented tournament circuit. Player careers were notoriously short and then thus unprotected. Grueling 12 to 14-hour practice days led to rapid burnout with a near-total lack of benefits like health insurance or retirement plans. As Siegel, who was with the Dallas Fuel at the time, put it, the new league represented structure, a place where you can build a better life. And so the gold rush then started. A revolution imposed from the top down, explicitly designed to mimic the stability and financial power of leagues like the NFL and the NBA. However, this copy-paste structure struggled to value its most unique assets, foreshadowing the culture clash to come. Take the case of a young main take for the Dallas Fuel, Félix Lengyel, better known today as XQC. In the league's inaugural season, he was a star player, earning the league minimum salary of $50,000 a year. But his massive, controversial personality clashed with the league's buttoned-up, traditional sports image. After a series of fines and suspensions, he was then released. He would go on to become one of the biggest streamers on the planet, proving the open creator economy valued his personality at tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, a value the league's rigid structure had no idea how to capture.
I'm sitting in the smoke.
I'm gonna molly him then.
Okay. I just got mollied. I think they mollied me. Where did your molly hit?
I didn't throw it yet. Want me to throw it?
Yeah. Okay, I'm blind. They just threw a fucking perfect flash at me. These guys like know right where I'm at. Alright.
XQC's story proved that while the league could promise financial stability, it had no idea how to handle the chaotic, content-driven personalities that were the actual lifeblood of the community. It was the first sign that the NFL dream was on a collision course with reality. The core promise of that dream, which was repeated like a mantra by OWL Commissioner Nate Nanzer, stability was anchored by the doctrine of no relegations. That promise was then amplified by Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick, who framed it as a forever investment, a feature that was then designed to attract high net worth investors for traditional sports. Big-time players like Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots and Stan Kroenke of the LA Rams, just as a few examples. For most of us, the cost of the entry was staggering, a reported $20 million for the Overwatch League, $25 million for the Call of Duty League, and $10 to $13 million for the LCS. But these billionaires were chomping at the bit to spend some pocket change.
The way that it was perceived by the community at the time was that this was all just a big money grab scheme from Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick to sell these spots to his friends in the sports industry. The people that had built the scene from the ground up did not have the type of capital that these people had.
For a brief shining period, the dream felt real. The inaugural Overwatch League Grand Finals sold out Barclays Center with a broadcast on ESPN in prime time, and the 2018 League of Legends World Championship drew a whopping 99.6 million unique viewers. This was the peak. This was the dream scenario they sold. But the dream's foundation had a core motivational misalignment that doomed it. Publishers saw leagues as marketing tools for their games. Traditional sports investors, however, expected direct, scalable returns on investments. Teams were stuck in the middle. This conflict, marketing tool versus a profited enterprise, meant that the model served two different ideologies. Ultimately, it would fail to satisfy either. The gleaming promises of franchise era quickly faltered under the harsh realities of the esports market. Around 2022, the speculative bubble burst, leading to a brutal market correction known as the esports winter. The first cracks appeared as the industry's unstable spending habits were then exposed. The massive influx of investment capital had created a player salary bubble, with the top talent earning seven-figure contracts that far outpaced actual revenues. When the investment money dried up, the model's unsustainability was laid bare, and the mass layoffs then began. Riot Games, the publisher of League of Legends, cut 11% of its workforce, and the financial strain became undeniable. But the scale of the failure was quantified by a single colossal number. By mid-2022, the franchise team in the Overwatch and Call of Duty leagues collectively owed Activision Blizzard $400 million. The Overwatch League, the most ambitious experiment, collapsed entirely. Its homestead model failed. A corporate scandal at Activision Blizzard led to a massive exodus of key sponsors, and then the loss of Chinese market was a fatal blow. The system was so controlling that the US Department of Justice even filed an antitrust complaint against Activision for using a salary cap to illegally suppress player wages. The publisher was ultimately forced to forgive all deferred payments they were owed, and on top of that, pay each team a $6 million sorry this didn't work out fee just to dissolve the league. But the numbers only tell half the story. The real cost is measured in human capital, and no story better illustrates the broken promises of the era than the fairy tale to tragedy story of the Vancouver Titans. You see, when the Overwatch League launched, it hyped up the story of Runaway, a beloved unsponsored Korean team competing in signature pink uniforms, financed out of pocket. When they were signed as a full unit to become the Vancouver Titans, it was a marketing dream for the league, proof that grassroots passion had a place in this new corporate world, and the team absolutely dominated. But that dream was built on the fragile promise of a global city-based league with live events, a promise that shattered with a 2020 pandemic. With the league forced online, the Titans roster returned to South Korea. Reports alleged that the ownership, citing budget issues, now that the league's revenue model was gone, failed to provide adequate support. The dream imploded. Just months after being the most dominant team in the league, the entire legendary roster was then released. The most heartwarming story in Overwatch had been consumed and destroyed by the very system that promised it a permanent home. And this wasn't just an Overwatch problem.
It was called the E-Classico, right? OpTic versus Envy. If this league never franchised, we'd still have these two teams probably going at it. Instead, they're now part of the same organization, and Envy disappeared, and people mourn the loss of Envy and they mourn the loss of Dallas Empire, and thankfully now it looks like they might be coming back in some capacity. But I think in the franchise era in COD, that was the big moment to kind of say, well, there are positives to this, but also the scene has lost a lot of its history and depth and character.
The LCS faced its own crisis. Citing financial pressure, owners voted to gut the developmental league, triggering the historic 2023 LCS player walkout. That was compounded by the exit of its cornerstone franchise, TSM, after their landmark $210 million FTX sponsorship imploded. After 5 years, TSM sold their $10 million franchise slot for $10 million, a perfect case study in zero asset appreciation. The viewership numbers told the same story of decline. The Overwatch League's numbers were greatly exacerbated by a disastrous exclusive streaming deal with YouTube that severely damaged its visibility. The only exception was the Call of Duty League, whose success was wildly attributed to embracing its community by allowing stars such as Scump to co-stream matches, a lesson its counterparts were tragically slow to learn. As the viewership steadily declined, the financial exposure increased. The revenue engine for its franchising model was fundamentally inverted. Traditional sports leagues derive value from multi-billion-dollar media rights deals that took decades to build and didn't alienate their audience. The esports franchise model attempted to start at the end of that journey, selling multi-million-dollar slots based on the projection of future revenues that never materialized. This structural flaw was then magnified by a string of failures. The very public collapse of the Overwatch League created a powerful negative narrative that accelerated the esports winter. Investors' worst fears were confirmed, creating a ripple that spread across the entire ecosystem. The failure of one league became a self-fulfilling prophecy for them all. They were built top-down, selling the penthouse before the foundation had even been laid.
The decision makers that came in from the traditional sports, they saw the models that were working in regular sports and they thought that I was easily applicable, but they failed to understand that esports fans are fundamentally much younger than traditional sports fans, and the way that they want to consume and pay and what they find valuable is very different.
A dissolved league, a mountain of debt, a player walkout. All of these were symptoms of the same root problem. The entire model was built on the assumption that its massive audience could be monetized at a scale similar to traditional sports. But what was the actual financial value of a fan in this new ecosystem? The answer is the single most important number in the entire story. The average annual revenue generated per esports fan was estimated at a mere $5.30 USD. To put that in context, in the same period, the average revenue per fan of the NFL, NBA, and MLB was around $80, with the NFL topping out at $100. That's the gap between hype and reality. A franchise model demanding NFL-style investment built on a fan base that generated more than 15 times less revenue per person. That isn't a business plan, it's a mathematical impossibility. And it leads us to the deeper cultural reason for this entire failure. This wasn't just a string of bad luck. And despite what some may claim, it certainly wasn't COVID. The pandemic was just fuel to the fire, not the ultimate reason. You see, the truth is, the model was broken long before lockdown. This was a design flaw. The root cause of the entire collapse was a catastrophic strategic error, a lazy copy-paste of a 19th century city-based sports model onto a 21st century digitally native community.
The concern was, and it was a valid concern looking back at it, that the league would be created in the image of a traditional sports league, whereas actually esports has something very different and in some sense better to offer.
And the stakeholders in the scene before the investment wave saw the flaws from the very beginning. When the CDL was first announced, 100 Thieves CEO Nate Schott initially balked at the idea, stating, "We aren't ready to pick a city. This is a worldwide brand." But in a system dubbed a 100% monopoly in a later lawsuit by OpTic Gaming CEO Hex, Nate's resistance ultimately did not matter. Eventually, 100 Thieves was forced to buy into the very model they were skeptical of just to have a seat at the table. This created a massive cultural clash. The goal wasn't to sever the existing audience. It was to attract investors with a familiar model. In the same lawsuit, Hex, he alleged an executive told him he was not the type of owner Activision wanted in the league. And this led to the model's most contradictory incentive. In a closed system, a good business plan is more valuable than winning. In 2022, Riot rejected the World Championship runner-up OpTic Gaming Valorant roster from its partnership program. The best team in the world was dismantled overnight. And in their farewell, team captain FNS captured the heartbreak of an entire fan base.
I was just like, man, like, just sucks, because for me, I wasn't really thinking about the loss. I was thinking like, okay, this is probably the last time this lineup plays together. It's like very likely that this is the last time that we are all five going to play together, well, six including Chet. So that's what was in my mind. I was just sitting there. I remember I've never done this in a LAN event after I've lost a game. It was just sitting there kind of contemplating what to do next. Like, I didn't even know what I'm supposed to do. Like, forgot I'm supposed to get up and go. It just sucked sitting there and kind of understanding like, all right, well, this is it. This is it. And then we finally got up, did our huddle, and I just told them, you know, it's okay, because we had an amazing year. We had an amazing team. We created something from nothing, essentially. Nobody knew we were capable of any of this. Half of us didn't even know we were capable of any of this. We dominated a whole year in a game that's just ever-changing.
That is a legacy of this model. A system where being the best wasn't enough to save you. A system that protected investors at the expense of competition itself. But from the ashes of this failure, there is a phoenix rising. The future of esports is pivoting, and now a monumental test between two opposing philosophies is underway. Path A is Riot's curated garden. They're doubling down on partnership, but with a new engine, a global revenue pool funded by in-game digital sales. With no massive buy-in fees, this model already proved its potential by sharing over $33 million with VCT teams in 2023 alone.
Oh dear, well.
Why are you not so much?
No, oh dear. Guys, don't feed Alpha, please don't feed Alpha. Out of all the players, don't let him have a round like, oh God, please! Somebody stop him! No!
Path B is Valve's open wilderness. For Counter-Strike, they've recently doubled down on the partner league bans entirely, forcing an open circuit model where invites are based on rankings in open qualifiers. It's a radical bet on pure competitive integrity over the financial stability of any single organization.
To the clock now! Rob! One-on-one! Jimmy to save Mouse! A triple kill out of Monsieur Elbow, and now we've never had a trumpet. Outstanding.
The most important lesson that esports should take away from the franchise era is that fundamentally esports is different from the ground up to regular sports. Esports, people talk about esports as if it's like another sport. They say, you go on the website and it's like, okay, football, basketball, golf, esports. It's like, no. It's an entirely new category of sports that operate in a very different way. It shouldn't have been about just replicating regular sports. It should have been about taking what had been built in esports and making it a more compelling product. And in some sense, it's achieved that, but along the way, it lost its way, I think, a lot in terms of what made esports esports.
The franchise experiment ultimately failed because it tried to sell the culture of the NFL to the community of Twitch and YouTube. The costly lesson was that you can't force a digitally native world into an analog box. The future will be decided by which of these new models, Riot's partner stability or Valve's enforced meritocracy, proves to be the truly sustainable path forward. But what do you guys think? Which path is the right one for the future of esports? Can both paths be successful? Let us know your take in the comments down below. Subscribe as always, and thank you for watching.